Hey everybody, welcome back to Unix TCG, and as promised, we're going to go over Trunks in Set 2. Set 1 Trunks in Set 2. Everybody voted for this being next on the Patreon, so here we go. And we are just about a little under a week away from the first Set 2 regionals happening in North Carolina, so I am beyond excited to jump into this one and see how it goes. So with that being said, let's get this one over 100 likes. The support we've been getting on the channel is amazing, and then as per usual, we will have the my current list and some footage, as well as some in-depth breakdown on my current list and where my testing has taken me on the Patreon, which will be in the description. So let's hop into it. So when it comes to Trunks, we're not going to be looking at it like a normal video that we do, because Trunks and Vegeta, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, have a lot of the same cards. So real briefly, we're going to talk about some of these cards, but we're also going to talk about how they interact differently in Trunks. So the first thing is the Trunks leader. Very basic in terms of that, but when he flips over, this is where the entire difference between it and Vegeta lay. So we're going to go through the cards that I like to focus on a little bit more, and then we're going to talk about the differences between Trunks and Vegeta if you're on the fence. Now, Trunks has a bounce effect. Activate main once per turn, choose up to one battle card with a cost of 3 or less and return it to the owner's hand. This is the crux of what makes things different with Trunks. Vegeta is going to go up to 35 when your hand is at 7 or less. Trunks does not have a hand requirement for using his effect, meaning that whether your hand is full or close to empty or under the 7 threshold, you will be able to use his bounce effect once he awakens. As a blue deck, I still feel like you don't need to awaken. You want to hold off your awakening as long as possible, mainly because if you get into the final turns of the game and like your life is at 6, it's going to be so much harder to kill you because they just have to wade through all of the defenses and whatnot. However, most of these cards are going to interact a little differently, and that's why this video is going to be different than the Vegeta one, because we're going to be able to go through here and talk about all of the differences with these cards interacting. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about here is the card that's specific for Trunks. This is a Vegeta. It's a 4-cost, 30k, 0-cost, or 0 combo power card that when you attack, you look at the bottom if your leader is a Trunks future, and you just play a battle card with a cost 2 or less from the bottom. That's any battle card. Made that mistake before, it doesn't have to be a Trunks. So this is going to be neat because you can actually play anything off the bottom, 2 or less. There's a little gamble to it unless you're playing the 2-drop Trunks, but I personally think that this card is not the same level of potence that the Vegeta, the 4-drop Super Saiyan Vegeta for Vegeta is. That card is gas, makes your leader stronger every turn, don't even need to swing with it. This card needs to go sideways, and then unless you're playing the 2-drop Trunks, there's not really a guarantee unless you're using Time Ring or something like that. So I don't exactly like this card, but if you like it, if you find that it's been doing well, let me know in the comments. That is you. But now we're going to start moving on to the cards that, yes, you've seen in my Vegeta breakdown, you've seen in my Zamasu breakdown, but they work differently in this deck. So you've got Vegeta. And this guy is, the more and more I test, the more and more I feel like he's the best blue card to be introduced to this set outside of maybe Absolute Lightning. Absolute Lightning covers a hole. Vegito just puts the deck into Turbo Drive. So you've got this Vegito, and he's got a permanent that if you're 7 cards or less, you reduce everything on the field by 1. This is going to allow you to pop 4 costs back into your opponent's hand, and that becomes a massive detriment. You can actually like the amount of things you can touch before the battle step even happens. Like every color has things. You don't want to bounce Keflas in red. You want to put them to the bottom of the deck, the 4-cost Keflas, yes. But you can bounce Ribriannes. If your opponent is playing other cards, like there are so many cards that you can just bounce to hand with the threshold. In red, the targets are fairly low. Most of their stuff is 3, so you can already hit it regardless, and you don't want to bounce Kefla. But there are cards like Ribrianne that you can indeed bounce. Once you move over to blue, you can bounce your opponent's Zamasu SRs if they play them. You can bounce your opponent's Vegeta, 4-drop Vegeta if they play them, just by having a Vegito on the board and being able to lower that threshold. Green doesn't really make a lot of sense. They're not really playing a bunch of cards. You could bounce a Vegeta to their hand, but that's just 10k. At that point, it already did its job coming into play. But the other thing, the thing that really makes the difference is yellow. Yellow can play a cooler and say you have to have Sickle or bust. And I mean, I've been talking about this with some of my Patreon members. I don't really like Cooler in this upcoming format. I think he is very easily dealt with by red, and he is breathed on by blue and it's gone. But blue can use Sickle and it's gone. Blue can use Absolute Lightning and it's gone. Blue, as Trunks, can also just play Vegito and then bounce it with Trunks and just literally tell you, do it again. Literally do it again. And that is a huge, huge problem for yellow decks. Your 4-drop Frieza is not safe either because, again, blue can play Vegito and just bounce it with their Trunks leader. So, and if they're at the 7 or fewer threshold, like if they're at 8 cards and they play Vegito, they can bounce it, or they can bottom deck a 2-drop and then use their leader effect to bounce a 4-drop. And that's now you're starting to see the theme of Trunks, just the cards that you're allowed to just throw back. Now, next you've got Zamasu Fused. Zamasu Fused just is a great draw engine. Costing 4 kind of is a detriment to me. I feel like there are a lot of times where I'd rather play a Vegito or a Sickle and then have a peel off going off, but you know, you never know. On 4, I think it's a little sus. I think when you're above 4, there's plenty of room to play it. So this is a card I want to experiment more with, to be honest. But right now, being a 5K on the combo and costing 4 for what it does, it's interesting. It's not bad. It's interesting to me, especially since so far there's a lot of times where until the very, very, very late game, you do have too many cards. A lot of times it's very weird. This is one of those cards where sometimes he feels great, sometimes he feels very underwhelming, and that makes me like hesitant to rely on him as a card. But Zamasu is pretty good. Zeno is Zeno. He is able to bottom deck an entire field. This is your get out of jail free button in a lot of cases. As long as you're at a healthy life total, Zeno is literally and figuratively God. So that's pretty much that. And then we get to Absolute Lightning. Absolute Lightning is pretty much the same here. It doesn't get changed by Trunks' effect. It's just that dude for removing huge things like Frieza SCR and big 8 drops and stuff in green. So then we go to the older cards, and right before we get to the older cards, we're gonna have a message from our sponsor. So hey, look, it was coming. So, as you guys know, I'm sponsored by Mystic TCG, one of the coolest stores in the United States, but definitely coolest store in Missouri. They run all their own locals, they run events, they buy singles, they buy collections, they buy prize cards. Eden himself, the owner of the company, shows up to plenty of events in order to just chill, play, see the homies, and buy prize cards if you're willing to sell them. So always hit them up. You can always hit them up on the Facebook site as well, talk to them through the messenger. But yeah, Mystic TCG is what's up, and you can go down in the description to use the code UNIXTCG to just get discounts off of your pre-orders or orders on the site. And if you're above the border in Canada, you got G3. They hold their own events. They hold their own events over Discord. They house one of the most competitive Dragon Ball Super Masters teams on this planet. And on top of that, they also buy singles, they sell singles, they buy prize cards, they do so much stuff there as well. So go into the description, check out their site, but you can also use the code UNIX to get 5% off your purchases and pre-orders there too. So hey, that's what it is. And then last but not least, just want to let you guys know I'm doing so much on the like other sides, other quadrants of Universe X. I'm streaming. It's taking a little bit of a backseat right now because of Set 2's release and all these regionals and me moving, but I do stream. I also have my Patreon where you get my in-depth lists and just unfiltered thoughts and sometimes content early. A lot of stuff is going over on the Patreon, and as it's growing, I'm just putting more and more time into it. So hey, excellent. But yeah, you can always find different things. I should be doing a little summon video pulling on the new Ultimate Gohan, LR, and Dokkan in the next few days, so look out for that on UniXDB and more Sparking Zero news. Just a good time, just a good time in general. So with that being said, let's get back to the content. So going into the old cards, you have a lot of extensions. Like Zamasu on screen right now, still a very, very good card. But any time that you think about what these cards are doing, you can think that you can clear even more without having to attack into it if Trunks is on the board. Like, you have a Vegito out, and then you play Zamasu, and Zamasu, if you're under 7 cards in hand, at this point 7 or under, you're going to be able to bottom deck a 2-drop with Zamasu's effect. Then you're going to be able to bounce a 4-drop or higher, or 4-drop or lower with Trunks' effect. So you really just extend your cards. Also, the thing about Trunks is that once he's awakened, your cards don't have to be an open nerve. You play this card and you're like, oh, that's 10k battle power. but there's so much one-drop hate that you never quite know. But Trunks, if you don't have a better target to bounce, you play your Zamasu, you bottom deck your one-drop, you bottom deck your two-drop, whatever you need to do with this guy, and you bounce him back to hand, so he's safe to use later as a combo or to be replayed. And that is the craziest thing. There have been games where, like against Yellow, where they can't get rid of the Vegetos, and you just have Vegito and Vegito. Like, my worst scenario was having 3 Vegetos on board and my opponent could not clear them, and I played as Zamasu and bottom decked a 4-drop Frieza, and then I bounced Zamasu to my hand and replayed it and just bottom decked a Vegeta. That is so backbreaking. Like, that's like a really like rare scenario, because I saw 3 Vegetos and played all 3 of them, but I just didn't swing with them, because at that point I was like, all my stuff touches all your stuff, so I'm just not going to turn these guys sideways until I think it's the kill. But you really are a control deck, and what you do with that is what you do with that. Now, moving on to Pilaf. Pilaf is Pilaf. We have no need to explain it, because, well, maybe in like some other things where people might need to learn how to use the Pilaf loop, but you don't really have to explain Pilaf. He's a broken card who gets the one-drop Earthlings, including himself. But again, in any other blue deck, you have to play him, and then you have to either find a way to get him back to your hand, or you have to leave him on the field and hope your opponent does not blow him up. And if they blow him up, okay, well, I've got another Pilaf in hand. Trunks doesn't have that problem. You play Pilaf, you do what you need to do with him, you get what you get back from it, and you bounce Pilaf back to hand if you don't have a better target, and he's protected. They will never break the Pilaf chain when you're using Trunks effectively, because you can always put him back in your hand. Then you have the Trunks Future. This card is a very good. He's just a 2-cost for 30k, so he's easy pressure. Very good when you're trying to just get in some quick, easy damage, force cards out of their hand, because essentially on a 20k leader, he forces 2 cards out of their hand or a super combo. So very good. Or an extra card. Extra cards do work too. And then, depending on your synergy, you are able to just bring him back. So the next card I wanted to talk about is Piccolo. Piccolo's good in any blue deck. However, in Trunks, once again, he really shines because you can bounce him back. If you play cards like Sickle, and you play this guy to get Sickle back, and you Sickle them, and then you activate Trunks' ability to put this card back in your hands so that you can do it again next turn, your opponent just knows that no matter what, 6 energy will take 2 cards off of their board unless you want a Zeno. So you really do have the ability to do things like play Piccolo, get Sickle back, attack with Piccolo, attack with your leader, bounce Piccolo back, and just know the setup is there. And the later you get in the game, the more energy you have, the more you can do alongside that combo, so it gets even more dangerous. Then you have the ability to cycle things like Lightning. You have things to cycle like Gallic Gun, like Time Machine, which I'm going to talk about soon. This is a house. And then you have the 5-cost Vegeta, which again, very good. But like I said, because you have the Trunks ability, you have the extension. If somebody plays a Kefla and then plays another card, normally you bottom deck the Kefla. But in Trunks, you can bottom deck the Kefla, bounce the A17, bottom deck the Kefla, bounce the Gohan, force them to have to play these cards again. And sometimes with the Gohan, you might just want to actually attack it. You never know. But yeah, there's just a lot of options that Trunks extends as a leader. And then you have Time Machine. A lot of people, I think, are sleeping on this card. Me personally, I like this as the Vegeta engine more than I like this as the Vegeta engine more than the Vegeta engine. I like this to be your Trunks. You let the Trunks go to the bottom of the deck, and then you just never bounce it back to hand. You always let it go to the bottom of the deck, because this card is here. You can use Pilaf to recycle it. You can use Piccolo to recycle it. So at any time, you just pay 1 for a 30k. And that's where you really start getting this juice. And then any time in the game, you can be like Pilaf, Time Machine, bounce Pilaf, and then you're like, okay, I'm just gonna play Time Machine, get a 30k. So that's 2 costs for 30k, but it's always accessible. And so I think that's actually a pretty cool, nifty trick. Then you've got Sinister Sickle, just top 5, maybe even top 3 card in the game right now, just busted broken. This needs like a reprint with some higher rarity. And then Gallic Gun for the pseudo super combo. It actually feels like a master super combo. And that's pretty much that. So I'm gonna go to the closing, where we're gonna talk a little bit more about the comparisons between the two. So at the end of the day, a lot of people are gonna ask, why Vegeta or why Trunks? And I think that the pluses for Trunks is that all of your cards go a lot further because you can bring back a Pilaf to hand, because you can bounce a Zamasu after using it, because you can bounce a Piccolo after using it. You get longevity on these cards. Your opponent doesn't get to just, like with Vegeta, some of these cards are one-shots. A Piccolo is a one-shot card. You play it once, you get back your card, you swing with it, whatever happens to it, happens to it. And Trunks, it's an engine. It's an actual loopable engine, this Piccolo. Same thing with Pilaf. Pilaf, you can kind of chain it well as long as you have other copies, but Trunks is able to be a lot more liberal with his copies because at any moment you can decide, I don't want this one to stick around on the field to be shot at, and you bring it back to hand. The other thing that Trunks is going to be able to do is, like I said, broaden your removal. And if Blue's ability to stay alive is its best quality, its ability to go long and neutralize the board, Trunks's ability, in my opinion, is better off for the Top Coup mirror, or the Top Coup matchup, because you're putting back more cards. Top Coup is good because it cheats out cards. When Top Coup can no longer cheat out cards, or it has to start spending energy for it, it becomes a worse deck. And when you're done bottom decking everything, all the Keflas, so they can't just full out cheat, and they only got their leader effect in their hard cast, but you're bouncing half of that per turn, they never amass the board that brings them to a winning position. And that allows you to potentially, like, you know, carve out your path to victory. It's still a very 50-50 in my opinion, and Top Coup high rolls are just some of the best in the game right now, but I do think that Trunks is better in the Top Coup matchup for numerous reasons. Now, Vegeta has more pushing power. So when it comes to the green matchup, yes, Cell does heal, and that's really rough to get around, but Vegeta does have a better matchup clearing out those last 4 life once he awakens. Vegeta also has that better matchup, I believe, has the better finishing power. That's the hard part about Top Coup. If we're gonna use Top Coup as the metric, which is what I kind of did for my tier list, since I do think it's BDIF, Vegeta has a better time trying to punch at that life, but Trunks has a better time staying alive, so you get more shots at that life, in my opinion. Like, it's only one card, but like I said, because Trunks can bounce the Piccolos, because Trunks can bounce the Pilafs, you have a lot more longevity, and that's going to line up more shots at your opponent's life. Of course, you have Haru and Maki, which I forgot to put in the video, and Haru and Maki and the Bulma both essentially do the same things for Vegeta and Trunks, respectively. So you got that. But yeah, I really do think that Trunks is better at surviving, and that's going to go a very long way. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I personally, between both of them, I like Trunks a little bit more. I think better defense in this case is better than just the leader having offense, and I like what he's able to do with your pieces, allowing them to get more life out of them, more bang for your buck. You put a card in at 2 and you know you're going to see it more or use it more than 2 times if you really need it. You just need to see it once because of Trunks' leader effect later in game. So let me know again what you guys think in the comments. I will see you guys here on the Patreon or in the next video, and I cannot wait for some Set 2 regionals coming up. Thanks, and I'll see you later. Bye.